Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Welcome back to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and I have the most amazing guest today. She has an incredible story about survival and courage. Her name is Shari Petersen. She is an author, just published her book about her experience of survival, and I'm just going to toss it over to her. So Shari, welcome to the show.
Hi, Cheryl. Gosh, it's good to talk to you again. Thanks so much.
Oh, thanks for being here, and it's so good to hear your voice. I'm just a little bit sad that we're not face to face, but you know, once everything goes back to normal, we'll see each other again, maybe have a cup of coffee and talk some more.
Oh, you betcha.
Well, I am so grateful that you are willing to share your story because it is one heck of a story. So I'm just going to toss it over to you and tell me and my listeners what happened in February of 1989.
Great, thanks. Well, my story begins, I worked in airlines, travel business and industry for many, many years and moved into an airline position where I was traveling with executives and doing meeting planning all over the world. So I happened to be scheduled to be in Australia for a week. I was to be in Sydney, just a normal flight for me, Denver, LA, Honolulu, Sydney, and everything was going smoothly. Boarded my flight in Honolulu. It was around very late at night, February 24th, 1989. And as I'm boarding the aircraft, it is, the whole thing just becomes a bit surreal. And there's a whole story behind that too, but it's one of those things where you kind of step outside yourself and you're watching yourself go through these motions and thinking, well, that's really odd. So because I was a travel employee, they, as a courtesy, upgraded me from my seat in coach to seat 9F in business class. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the last to board because, of course, they have to make sure that seat is available. And as I board, I'm thinking, wow, this is a really old aircraft. I hope it makes it, kind of chuckling to myself. Little did I know.
Wow.
And I turn left and I go to my seat 9F and there's a gentleman seated there. He's all settled in. He has his cocktail. He's got his book out. He's chatting with his seatmate. And I said, I'm so sorry, excuse me, but I showed him my boarding pass. It said 9F. And he looked over his right shoulder at me, kind of like, ugh. And he goes, well, I have 9F. And he reaches in the seat back, pulls out his ticket. He also has 9F. And the flight attendant then comes up and says, please just sit anywhere. We need to push back. Perfect. Not a big deal. So I plopped down in 13F. Just a few rows behind him. Now I'm on the aisle. To my right are two seats, the aisle. Me, I'm in a 4-seat section, another aisle, and then 2 seats on the left side of the aircraft. Mm-hmm. And I'm seated at the bulkhead, so I have a wall behind me. Mm-hmm. And we settle in, and I tighten my seatbelt, and we push back and take off. And the weather was a little rough. There was a thunderstorm, so this is all pertinent to the story. So we went around the thunderstorm. So the captain was a little slower gaining altitude on the climb out. So as we're climbing out, I'm thinking, looking around at everybody, and I'm thinking, wow, who are these people? I don't know why my head went there, but I did. And I pulled out my book and I thought maybe I should take a sleeping pill because it's going to be 8 hours to Auckland and then on to Sydney and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, nope, I better not. And this little voice said, you need to don't do it because in case there's an accident, in case there's an incident, in case you need to pay attention. And I thought, where did that come from? So
you had this incredible intuition going on that
yes.
To stay alert.
And I was everything was stay alert. That's a well put, Cheryl, thanks. So I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. So then I reach down and pull out my book, and we've probably been just a few minutes in the climb out. And I hear these very strange sounds in the floor. It's a grinding. And my instincts, again, everything in my body said, that is not right. There's something wrong. That is not right. And then there was a jolt and a sound like when you hit a pothole. You're riding along and all of a sudden it's just a jolt and a sound. Just picture that. And then instantly the cargo door was ripped up, and it took the side of the airplane off, exposing, it actually ripped 4 seats out where there were 8 people seated into the night instantly. And I'm sure you just blinked, and that's how fast it was. It was just, you blinked and they were there and they were gone. Plus, it took the guy in 9F in my seat.
That would have been your seat.
That was my seat.
You would have been sitting there and you would have been just sucked out.
Yes, and I apologize. I forgot a very significant part of this and how I did it. As I was sitting there and I had the intuition about don't take the sleeping pill, just a few minutes later, a young man whispers in my ear, tighten your seatbelt, you're in for the ride of your life. And I turned so quick to see who was talking to me over my shoulder when the seatbelt sign's on. And I know the crew members shouldn't be up, and so I looked behind me, there is not a soul in the aisle.
Wow.
And I sat there for a second. I did the same thing. I went, what? I thought, wow, that is not a crew instruction. No way would a flight crew member lean over in the ear of a passenger and say something like that. And I just thought, holy smack, what? So I grabbed my seatbelt and I gave it a couple of tugs. I was so snug. And I leaned back just a little bit and stuck my thumbs in the seatbelt, and that's when all these noises started. And I'm going, oh, that's not right. That's not right. Had I not tightened my seatbelt, I would have absolutely been pulled out of my seat.
Shari, do you have any idea where that voice came from? I mean, you've had, 30 years now to think about it. Who do you think it was?
Well, it wasn't earthly. It wasn't me thinking as I did when I had the instruction to probably not take a sleeping pill in case there's an incident. It was an actual voice, and it wasn't loud, but it wasn't a whisper. And it was definitely a young male voice. Wow. And again, when I turned, there was nobody there. I mean, there was just, 400 people behind me.
Wow, that is incredible. That just gave me chills. Okay, continue.
Thank you. Well, so immediately, and those of you who fly, it was, we were at 4 miles up, we were at 24,000 feet. And the cargo door, when it ripped up, it was a malfunction. It was electrical malfunction. So the door decided to open on its own, and the crew members in the cockpit, they had no idea that, because all the lights still showed everything is operational. So they didn't even know what had happened. So when the plane's door blew up, of course, the rapid decompression completely sucked everything out that was in the area, not only the 8 people that were seated in their seats and their seats in the floor, the gentleman in 9F, but anything that wasn't tacked down went out that hole instantly. It just vaporized. Everything was just gone.
Wow.
A lot of it, and it was night. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. So all of the lights and the oxygen masks gone. All we could see were the structure of the interior, the girders and stuff, because it took the paneling, it just took everything out. And the people that were right next to me that had the window in the aisle seat, I turned and looked at them, and they were a bloody mess because all of the debris, of course, had to go past them.
Oh.
And they had no floor. I mean, their feet were hanging. They had just a little bit in front of their seat, but the rest of the floor was gone. And as I'm looking at them, the seat is unstable. It's probably at about a 30-degree pitch forward. So we're bouncing around in the air. You can imagine the vibration, and the pilots are trying to control the aircraft. And
were people screaming?
I don't know. It was so loud. If you've ever heard a 747 engine, it's a very high pitch, and it was going at full speed right next to us, probably 20 feet away, and they were on fire.
Oh.
Yeah. So I turn to my right, and I see engines on fire, a hole, and the water.
Oh.
What do you do?
Wow. What do you do? I mean, it must have been like, hell in the sky.
perfect description.
Oh,
It was unbelievable. The people to my left, it was a father, his 6-year-old daughter, and his pregnant wife.
oh,
And I grabbed his leg and held on when it first happened because I fully expected to be pulled out. But after the initial decompression, now you've got 600-mile-an-hour wind coming in, and it's probably 30 degrees out or 30 below. It's so cold
oh my
because we're
God.
at altitude, right?
Oh,
So, and it's dark, and the wires that had been torn from the aircraft, they're wires everywhere, they're hitting each other and sparking.
oh,
So you see all these just pinpoints of light, and they spark, and you think, oh my God, the next one's going to be the final bomb. You don't know what happened, right?
right.
So you're in this position of you're cold, you're scared, you don't know what's happening. You can see probably the likelihood of how this is going to end. And it's
It's not good.
well, it, with all due respect and with all truth, it's come to Jesus time.
Absolutely.
hmm So the fellow next to me, the gentleman, the father, I noticed he and his wife had put a pillow over their daughter's face, one of those small airline pillows.
Uh-huh.
And I asked him later, that was pretty smart to protect from the debris. And he said, no, we just didn't want her to see what was coming next.
Oh.
And I was like, oh. So, yeah.
So
So
then,
holding,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, so I'm holding on, we're up there. So I grabbed the arm of the fellow to my right, who's holding onto his armrest, and I'm trying to get him to look at me so he's not looking down. His wife is completely in shock, looking straight ahead, and she's looking across the hole, which is about 10 feet wide, 18 feet, I don't remember. Anyways, big. And there's a flight attendant who had strapped himself in the seat facing her, and he was in shock. The rest of the flight crew, or a number of them, were instructions with the bullhorns, and it was so noisy. One of the flight crew members was yelling through this bullhorn, and you couldn't hear her, but you could see the veins on her neck just popping because she was yelling so hard.
Oh.
And they were fighting to get oxygen. They were grabbing the cylinders and putting masks on, so they had portable oxygen, but they didn't have enough of them. Found that out later. But they were trying to clear the debris from the aisles and from the emergency exits. I mean, their hands were full, and helping people, and all the while wondering, they don't even know what's happened.
How in the world can you clear the debris and stuff from the aisles when part of the aisle doesn't even have a floor?
Well, just the one part. The rest of the aisle, just that part that was taken out, that was 8 seats or 4 rows. But in the front of the section, up the other side of the aisles, and in that area, because everything had blown and it got stopped and then just dropped. So something was in an overhead bin, and didn't go out in the immediate decompression. It just fell in the aisle because it's an instant, and then the wind's incoming, right?
Right.
Okay, here's an example. Did you ever see Castaway with Tom Hanks?
I did not.
Well, a lot of people did, and the volleyball Wilson,
Right.
or pardon me, the soccer ball.
Yeah.
So how he ends up on this island is the very same thing that happened to us. So if you go on YouTube and Google the plane crash in the Castaway movie, it'll show you a very, very clear description or depiction of what happened. I was kind of taken away. In fact, my sister told me to watch the movie, and after that happened, I shut it down, and I called her. I said, don't ever do that again. Tell me she said, I forgot that part.
Oh, gee. I mean, it's minor detail.
Yeah, that's what I said. Please don't do that again. At least warn me. So watch that. And I was timing it on the watching it and seeing how long it was. The scene they show you is 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and we did it for 23 minutes. Everything you see in that movie. So check it out.
Did you ever think, I mean, the 23 minutes is an eternity when you're in a situation like that. Did you ever think that you were going to make it out alive, or did you think that this is it?
There was no way. I worked for a lot of airlines prior to this position, and rapid decompression, bad deal. Engine fire, bad deal. We have both. So he has, and on top of that, this is a fully loaded 747. I forget how many tons of fuel were on it or pounds. It was
Oh,
just one point during this time, we saw a flight deck member come down the spiral staircase because the 747 is the two floors.
right.
So to my right, or pardon me, to my left, I saw him come down the staircase, and the minute he saw that, his face just, well, you can only imagine.
Yeah, I
Wasn't
can't.
yeah. But the flight crew, the flight crew that was in our area, they were watching him too, because they were working and everybody just kind of looked. He stood there for about a second and then just ran back up the stairs. So the good news is we still had a flight deck, because we didn't know if they'd broken off.
Right.
I mean, the Lockerbie was just about that time. So we all,
That was
right?
just 2 months earlier.
Yeah, yes. And side note, I did introduce myself to the captain later, after this was all over. I mean, months later. And he was telling me, he said, Lockerbie, the hole was the size of a basketball.
Oh,
That's all the bigger it was. And the reason of the difference is they were at full altitude and, fully, the pressurization was all, they were in cruising altitude.
right.
So when the hole blew the size of the basketball, it threw the airplane off. And of course, they automatically corrected it. And when they did that, it snapped the nose off.
Oh,
So he said, and this is over 30 years ago, but he said we were either 5,000 feet or 8,000 feet from fully pressurization. And had we been fully pressurized, we would have exploded in air with a hole that size.
wow.
It would have just been a mess. So
obviously they managed to get the plane under control and back to Honolulu, to the same airport, or
yes, we were only 100 miles out. I mean, we hadn't reached altitude yet, so we were 100 miles out. Now, the first thing that happened after the side blew, the amount of debris that went into the two engines on the right is what created the engine fire, right?
Oh.
So when you have that, you don't know if your wings are okay and your, everything to control the aircraft. I mean, they didn't know what was going on. So we're kind of falling out of the sky. We're just going towards the water.
Oh.
And he wanted to bring it down too, a little lower so we could breathe. It was horrible. It felt you couldn't breathe.
There's no oxygen at that altitude.
Yeah, and the incoming wind just took your breath. Plus, it's 30 below. So the conditions in the cabin were not comfortable. It was scary as all get out. So I'm looking out over the ocean, and that's why my book is called The View from 13F, because that was my view, and it shows just an endless ocean view. And I'm looking out, and there's clouds below me, and there's scattered clouds, beautiful silvery moon shining down on them, and it gave the edges of the clouds this beautiful silver lining.
Oh.
Looking down thinking, wow, and the water was just gently rippling, and you could see the moon reflection on the water. I mean, it was a surreal vision. And I'm looking down thinking, wow, if this wasn't so scary, that would be absolutely beautiful.
Oh.
So, but we're, basically leaning to the right and kind of going down. And I'm thinking, there's no way he's going to be able to keep this intact. And when we do hit the water, knowing what I know, that's going to be ugly. I mean, I might as well hit cement, but do I drown? Do I get caught in shark? I mean, wires, can I even get out? Are people going to be able to get out? I mean, it's just because
all that is going through your mind in like a split second.
Yes. And then I'm thinking in the back of at least I have an open door. How do you blow a door if you're underwater? I mean,
you don't.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking of I can't even tell you how quick your brain's going. I got to figure this out. And there's no place to put it. Where do you put it? Because all I keep thinking is, what? This is a United 747. This can't be happening. And then I'm sitting there going, but it is happening. How?
Yeah.
What? It was surreal.
Well, it's funny how your mind works in a situation like that, because it's the disbelief and the shock, battling out for the reality of it, and the analytical part of your brain. Okay, how am I going to get out of this? I mean, I just couldn't imagine.
Oh, yeah, there is no place for it. So you go into, well, this is what happened. This is my experience. I can't, of course, speak for the other 400 people, but I'm sitting there and watching, well, they were able to, they did shut down the 2 engines that were on fire, which reduced the vibration, which was so severe dramatically because those broken engines weren't, turning around and trying to do something. So
Uh-huh.
they did shut those down. And then you go into, as I read up on it, and again, recently, I was reading about near-death experiences, and I was shocked how what I'm about to describe is what other people described as a near-death experience. Because I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, everything around me became so calm, and I could tell I wasn't alone. It was so, and I thought, oh my God, my family, they're going to freak out when they hear about this. They're going to think this was horrible. She was by herself. She was scared to death. Everything you would think. And I thought, you know what? I'm really sorry they're going to feel that way because it's not horrible. I know I'm going to die. This is it. These are my last moments on earth. There is no way out of this.
So did you feel like a sense of peace or serenity or?
Surrender. Total surrender, because there was nothing I could do. There's not even a fight or flight option.
Right.
You were completely, and I just said, well, this is how I'm going to die. Who knew? So I kind of sit there. All this is going on around you. And I thought, I've tried to go back to that peacefulness and say, okay, meditation or whatever, just to say, I want to be there again because it was so indescribably peaceful. And again, I knew I wasn't alone. I knew there were beings around me. I felt like they were all around me saying, we got you, don't worry about it.
Do you feel maybe like they were either angels or your ancestors or, people that maybe you had known in life that were looking out for you and taking care of you, or even people that you didn't know, like great-great-grandparents or whatever?
No, it felt more like ethereal beings versus familiar beings, family,
Wow.
familial, whatever that word is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, it was, we got this, we've got you, there's nothing to worry about. And it was all vibration. I mean, no words. It was just, I just felt like whatever happens next, I'm going to be okay. I don't care how awful it is, I'm going to be okay.
Wow.
And I went to, yes, that's what I'm saying. And I could never put words to it till I started reading about near-death experiences. And people then took the next step and had amazing things. But this first part where you start getting, because I thought, I wonder what it's going to feel like to die. And then all of a sudden I felt this and I thought, well, I'm about to find out. And then I thought, wow, my family's going to be upset. I will not die scared or alone or horribly. I don't know, those are just words, but it also then became, you start looking at your life. When they say your life passes in front of you, they're not kidding. It's true. And it passes in front of you in a way that until you see it, it's hard to describe because you think you go, oh, here I am as a kid and here I am in high school. It's not that at all. It becomes the life that passes in front of you is a composite of where was your heart? Were you a good person? Did you do the right thing? And these are my words again. It's just, was I an okay person? And it was not, damn it, I wished I'd bought that car or a bigger house or made more money. None of that. Not one material thought. It was all about how did I do with the relationships?
So going forward in the aftermath, the pilot somehow, bless his heart, gets everybody, safe, lands the plane.
Yes.
And I'm guessing there must have been an emergency team waiting for you. And, what was that like then getting off the plane? And, did they have like a big debriefing? Did they take everybody to the hospital? What happened then?
Excellent. Yes. So we did make it back. And as he turns, I could see the lights of Honolulu. And I thought, holy cow, we might actually make it back. So the Captain Cronin was a former fighter pilot and a glider pilot. So he came in as high as he could because any altitude he lost, he couldn't regain.
Mm-hmm.
So this landing had to be so precise. absolutely precise, because if he came in too low, we're crashing into the edge of the island. We come in too high, we're going to run off the end of the, crash at the other end of the runway, because he didn't know if he had brakes or, he knew he didn't have 2 engines to reverse. And
Oh,
can he even land that a fully loaded, all that fuel and everything,
oh,
all, with all the structural damage? I mean, are we just going to break apart when we hit the runway? So
oh.
we weren't out of the woods yet by any stretch. So to make, so we come in and land, and it seemed like we were, I've never had an open window on a landing, but that was pretty interesting.
Oh, God.
I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And we evacuated that aircraft down the slides in less than a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was highly motivated.
I can imagine.
Yes, you can. So when he landed, and by the way, it was a perfect landing. Beyond perfect. I mean, perfect. He even said, I did not land that airplane. That was amazing. He told me that. He said, I did not land that airplane. So we land, he gets it stopped. And as we're going down the runway, there are fire rescue, we went from anyway, there's a lot of first responder equipment there and firefighters and such with foam and whatever. So we all evacuate. Now, when you go down the slide, they'll hit you in the back. Don't take anything. Hit the ground running, run away from the aircraft, right? Well, I had a track scholarship to college. So I hit the ground, and I'm about halfway to Kauai running, and I heard this Hawaiian voice, where are you going? And it stopped me, because I was and I turn, and there's this fire truck with these Hawaiian firefighters, and they're just kind of leaning up against the edge. And I looked at him and said, do you not see what I'm running from? So I turned, and it was, again, 1:30 in the morning, and I turned, and it was that soft Hawaiian rain had started falling.
Uh-huh.
What that feels like. And the airport was eerily quiet. They'd stopped all the traffic. Obviously, they expected a major catastrophe.
Disaster. Mm-hmm.
So it was quiet, and I just collapsed on the runway in a heap.
Wow.
And I looked at that airplane, and then I felt, again, this like downy, soft feathers just envelop me and hold me. And I put my head down, and I was in a marriage that wasn't going well. And I heard, you did okay. You're going to be okay. He's wrong.
Wow.
And I kept sitting up straighter and straighter. And when I came to the top one, it was like, holy cow. And then everything went from that softness back to, I could feel the rain, and I could hear the noises. And then those firefighters, the equivalent of, came out of the mist to me and said, let us help you. So they helped me up and walked me back to the aircraft.
Uh-huh.
Where, it was unbelievable.
Why did they walk you back to the aircraft? I would think that'd be the last place.
No, all the emergency equipment was there.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so they were because they knew then once we landed safely, they just stopped it, shut it off, and because at that time, we were clear at the end of the runway, so they had all these, all the equipment there to start hauling people back to the terminal.
Uh-huh.
So they put us on the wiki buses, which they used to have back then, get you to the aircraft at the terminal. You didn't have the jetways back then in Hawaii. So they took and put police tape up along one of the terminals walkways, and everybody who was in the incident was on the side of the police tape against the wall, and all the other passengers were walking by, to their business, going, well, what's going on here? And they just kept them moving. But they separated those of us that were near the hole, and we got to visit with the FBI immediately.
Oh.
Yes. So a lot of questions. Did you smell anything? Anybody acted weird, funny? People acted, did you hear anything? Whatever, all these questions.
You're still trying to process what the hell happened here.
Yeah, this is within minutes. I mean,
and then you're being, I don't want to say grilled, but of course they're investigating. I mean, how do you even put what you experienced into words?
Right. Thank you. That's exactly it. Because
did you almost feel like you were being victimized?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I wanted to help, because I kept telling him there were people by me and they're gone. We have to go get them. We have to go back and get them. I'm thinking, we got to go, I'm fine. Go get them, So, and I knew, they had to ask those questions. So it wasn't, well, then before I met with them, or we all met with them, they did, ask your medical, did you lose glasses? Did you need medication? Are you injured? Do you need to see a doctor? are there any conditions in you that we need to know about in case you do go into a shock or a heart attack? Or what, there were a lot of questions along that line. So this whole thing became nothing but, what do you need and who are you? And I mean, those are the questions I could at least answer. But what happened, I had no idea.
Right.
After
it happened so fast.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, blink an eye. You're sitting there on a routine flight, and then suddenly that you can't even make up. Who could even make up that story? I mean, you go, because I know flight crews train for every conceivable, incident. And this was a biggie because it had they thought it was a bomb as well. But again, you don't have the rear view mirror so you could look back and go, whoa, it looks like I blew a right tire. They have to
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's a whole different deal. And you've got a very large aircraft that needs immediate attention to get down. So we get there, and after the FBI is done, they bring in another set of FBI for the same questions. So you get a little break, and then, which I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But they're asking questions, they're not accusing. So I want to remember everything because I want to help. So that went on for a while, and then there was just a handful of us. They emptied the United red carpet room in Honolulu, and we all just kind of picked a spot and sat. I was by myself, traveling alone for this job. And so I'm sitting on a sofa, and the lady there brought me a little blanket and a pillow and said, here, get some rest. Huh.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Sure, let's do that. I'll take a nap.
Where's that sleeping pill, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'll take 2. So laying there on the sofa, I did close my eyes, and I'm watching. There was an enormous picture window and I had a direct view to it. And as the sun starts coming up, I sit up and I'm just, I don't even know how to describe it. I just was numb, trying to figure out what had happened. And I sat up and I pulled my little blanket around me, and I'm looking out the window, and as just the sun's coming up, and I see a silhouette of this airplane, and the sun peaking, and all of a sudden it's like a Broadway play. The sun just booms on the silver fuselage, and I'm looking right at that airplane in the hole.
Oh,
it was like a curtain rising. And I took my breath, and I sat there and went, holy cow, this is not a dream. This really did happen.
Wow.
Yep.
So that day then, that, sun comes up, it's a new day. And what happened then? I mean, did you stay in Honolulu for a while to try and get your bearings? Did you say, I'll take a boat back to the States, not an airplane? I mean, what happened next?
Well, yes. So the United jumped in and said, we have options. You can stay in Honolulu until you decide what you want to do. You can continue on to your destination, or we'll get you back to your origination point. Mm-hmm. And I sat there and thought, well, and I've got to get to work. There are 600 people waiting for me in Australia, and they're coming in tomorrow. So I said, I'm going to go on. So they took me to a hotel right on Waikiki. And I lived in Hawaii for a couple of years. So once I checked in, I didn't have my passport. It's all gone. It's
right,
out.
Right. You don't have any luggage. You don't have any clothes.
Got nothing. But I did grab my briefcase, which to anyone who's listening, do not do that. You're supposed to leave with nothing, but I took it. It's funny, Cheryl, you've got cat-like reflexes. And the minute that hole blew, I snapped my foot down on the briefcase into the seat in front of me. And I don't know why. It saved it. It didn't go out. So I did have that, but it was just paperwork. Anyway, I had my briefcase. So they checked me into this hotel, and I'm on the second floor, and I go up and I thought, okay, I know Scott. I'm going to give him a call, a friend of mine, and his wife had just gone to work, and he was eating breakfast, and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I just wonder and he goes, oh, you were on that airplane, weren't you? And I said, yeah. He said, I'm calling work. I'm taking the day off. I'm going to come get you. So I spent the day with him, and there's a story with that too, but he saved my life that day, helping me just go by the water, and we drank some gin and ate some saimin. And then he took me to the airport that night, about 8:00, to catch the second try at Sydney.
Oh God. What was that like to get
on the
airplane?
So we got to the airport early, and he said, come on, let's sit here at the bar. So we found this little bar that had 8 seats, just a little tiki bar thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a cocktail, and it was back in the day, you didn't have TVs in your bars like we do now, but it had a TV in there, and the Honolulu news breaking and said, oh, more news updates on that flight. We found 2 people in the engines. Oh, that's what I did. I was fine until I heard that, or body parts. I forget how they said it. But clear that I just lost it. I just gasped like that, and just tears were running down my face. And the darling little bartender comes over, and she's patting my hand. Are you okay? And I, oh my God, I was on that flight. I just, oh my, blah, blah, blah. Oh. So she just held my hand and kept patting it. And Scott didn't know what to do. He was, I don't even know what to do. So he was trying, very hard to not, he didn't know what to do. Yeah. So she sent us on our way. And finally I calmed down a little bit, and he says, listen, we need to go. So we go to the gate, and they put me in the same seat. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. So I board the plane.
Was it the same type of a plane?
Yeah, exact same plane.
Oh God.
Yeah, well, the flight runs every day, so they just put us back. But there were only 5 of us that went on in our section. So the 5 of us said, no, we're sitting together. Mm-hmm. We're not sitting in our seats. So we boarded and sat there. They had, at that time, you had a monitor at the front of the cabin that showed you the airspeed and the look, all the details of the flight. So we were all kind of nervously chatting till we started getting closer to 24,000 feet. And then everybody, see, it makes the heart pound now.
Wow.
Went quiet. And then we passed that. And then none of us, we just talked the whole way to Sydney or to Auckland.
How long of a flight was it?
8.5 hours.
Oh. I guess you got to know each other pretty well, huh?
Yes and no, because it was just a weird time. It was just a weird thing. It was mostly just, we were so nervous we were talking, and the flight crew was very nervous as well. And finally, after them asking us the 100th time, are you guys okay? I tapped the lady. I said, listen, I bet you don't realize this, but you're making us more nervous. Let's just keep this as normal as we can, please. Yeah. So we worked that out. But anyway, we got to Auckland, dropped them off, and then we went on to Sydney. And I worked for a week, which was a horrible situation because I was absolutely useless, couldn't sleep, and couldn't be in a dark room. And did the work I could the day before to prepare for our clients the next day. So that next day, hundreds of people, and all I kept hearing was, oh my God, I'm so glad I wasn't on that flight 2 days ago. What about it? I'm hearing that all around me, and I don't say anything because I'm working this. I don't need to go, oh yeah, I was on, they don't need to know it. Don't need to, this is their trip. Don't need to raise any flags. So I had to stuff it. Oh. And so I'd hear it for a while, and then I'd go, I can't do this. And now I haven't slept. I'm there, my second day there, I still haven't slept, and a whole bunch of stuff happened during that. So I'm not sleeping. And all these people are talking about this, and at night, I just couldn't turn the light off. And I've recognized it now as I look back. It was PTSD.
Right.
Because it was, how can I be in this hotel room and think everything is fine and safe? I wasn't thinking this out loud. It was in my psyche. Right. How can I do that when I thought, I was on a routine flight to Australia? Because I even said to myself, because people were, oh, have a safe trip. And I'm thinking, what could possibly happen? I thought, that's dumb. That's like going to the grocery store and saying, hey, Cheryl, have a safe trip.
Yeah, right.
What? No. Anyway, so I'm trying to reconcile all that and learned later that's because, and I'm still hypervigilant, but I'm laying there in that hotel room going, well, what if a meteorite hits?
Exactly.
I just can't, I didn't feel safe anywhere. So it was a very grueling experience.
So did you spend the entire week there working?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Jeez. And then what happened when you went home? You said you were married at the time, correct?
Right. So the flight home was the 15-hour nonstop to LA, which I'd never done. And it was a fairly new flight back then. And it was brutal. Now I'm on an airplane again, and I can't get off. And
Jeez.
it was just a mess. So I was just a mess on that flight. I was very uncomfortable. And I got to LA. I remember walking around LA. We had a couple hours layover, and I used to be in LA at least once a month. So the airport was like easy for me
Huh.
and familiar. So I'm standing there watching the people move around. And we landed at 5:30 in the morning or whatever. So I'm watching them drinking coffee, and now they're speaking American English, and they're just going about their business. And it was like I was a little wisp of smoke in the corner just watching all this going, wow, they're all so normal. Maybe I can be normal again someday. So flying across, from LA to Denver, it's all the familiar, the desert and the Rockies, and then into Denver. And it was just like, oh, I feel myself kind of coming down and landed.
Sometimes I think that's even harder, though, to go through something like that traumatic and that horrific, and then all of a sudden coming back to where everything is so normal. That's even more surreal and more like, how could this not impact everybody else? How could this not be impacting everything in my environment? How could everything be so quote unquote normal or the same when this horrible thing happened?
Yeah, but it was just me. I kept saying, "Can I fit back in?" I mean, they're normal, but I know I'm different now. And how do I plug back into normal? So
Uh-huh.
I really get how, not really, but I have a better understanding of service members coming back now, because you come
Right.
to this place that doesn't even make sense to everybody's moving around like nothing happened, and good for them. But what do I do with it?
Right.
So it was quite an experience trying to find that.
Of
And
how where you would fit back in to
yeah,
your
and how
life.
yeah, and what is my new normal, and my marriage, and that was a mess, and there was a lot of drama there, which we eventually did not stay together, for obvious reasons, because I woke up and said, this is not the life. You're going to die, so what is your life going to look like? Because now it made death so real to me. It's like, well, then I need to take better care of what I'm living and not make so much drama. Or I have two things happen. Do I want to focus on the good thing or the bad thing?
Uh-huh.
I mean, there were a lot of those kind of choices that became very evident to me, that not everybody, if you haven't gone through what I've gone through, you just go, oh, I'm just going to make this drama and part of my life. And I'm going, no way, don't need it.
That's one of the things that I noticed on your website, is that how you've actually found that, like, the courage to make different choices in your life.
Yes. And part of it, what it did is it put me on this quest to find authenticity. And a lot of it, my sanity returning, came from how I was raised. And I do, I know I'm starting to sound a little squeaky now, but I do a lot of speaking on this incident.
Uh-huh.
And the most common question is, how did you get through it? And I tell people, well, it was how I was raised. And they
Mhm.
would look at me like, well, okay, what does that mean? And so that's one of the reasons I wrote the view from 13F, is because the way I was raised was such a Midwestern solid background. It gave me the basis to make better choices because of the foundation I was given.
Mhm.
And so it made me realize, well, how can I help people that maybe weren't as blessed as I was with that solid foundation?
Mhm.
Let's pick up where you can control it and make it work for you.
I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because actually I just did an interview with a woman a couple of days ago, so the previous episode, and she didn't have that growing up. I mean, she was, in a very abusive household, and actually had become a bully herself as a result of that. And then as an adult, finally able to turn her life around. And I mean, it's really a beautiful story in the end. But if you've got those values at a very young age, where you're able to make good decisions and choices and be able to take care of yourself, that's so deeply ingrained in your very being, and in your mind and in your body and your spirit, that you're able to pick yourself up eventually and to be able to move on. You've got some kind of resources in your tool chest to rely on.
Yep, that's exactly right. And people have often asked, what would you call what worked for you? And I said, well, one was confidence. And my parents taught us a lot of responsibility in that whatever choice you make, we're not going to rescue you. You get to sort it out. So before you do something stupid, figure out how you're going to figure it out. And if you don't have that mess to clean up later, then don't do it. But they didn't tell us that. They just showed us that. They were constantly, anything we did from as young as I can remember, if I dropped the milk, I didn't get yelled at. Oh, how could you drop it? It was like, okay, how are we going to clean this up? And I got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I didn't do it very well, but then after it was done, my mom would say, well, next time you could, instead of using a spoon to scoop it all up, let's use a rag. You see what I'm saying? That's an example. But I mean, that kind of training, it's like, okay, so now I can see something happen and I go, wow, what's the best way for me to clean it up?
Mm-hmm.
Which helped me through this. And the other one was just confidence, because they proved to us that even though I really screwed up that way cleaning it up, there's another way, and I figured it out. So I'm confident I can figure out what's coming down the pike. I'm finding people are struggling with, so even on my website, which is sharipetersonauthor.com, when I talk with people, sometimes we do workshops, often we do workshops, and then, talk about things. But the workshop is, how many times do you hear, I don't know what my passion is, or everybody's mean to me, and it's just common life, and they just don't have the tools. And when I was counseling, I had a really busy counseling service for years, and people would just hand over their power to people, and I'd say, well, so-and-so's mean to me. And I turn back and say, well, what's your part in it? Well, what do you mean, what's my part? They're mean to me. Well, they don't even, that doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just, if you want to resolve this, there's other things we can talk about, like, what's your part in it? But you have to show them. You can't tell people. You have to say, let's talk about this. And then I love seeing the light come on when they go, oh, now I get it.
So you actually help them take their own power back.
Oh, absolutely. I had more people come to me and in a couple of sessions say, I've been in therapy for 5 years and you've helped me more in 2 sessions. Often.
Right. So now, did you become a counselor after the accident? I'm kind of guessing.
Yes. Well, it wasn't even counseling. Here's the thing. This is another funny story. This is way before coaching became a thing, or right when it was starting.
Uh-huh.
And people told me, you should do that because, look into this, because that's kind of what you're doing anyway. And I thought, well, maybe I should see how you do it professionally. So I went to this class that was very highly regarded in California. And at the end of the week, she flunked me. She didn't pass me.
Ah.
Yeah. And I thought, well, that's because what you're telling them is bull. So I didn't get what she was talking about. Her program was, here's how you do it so you can make this a business, not here's how you do it so you can help people get better.
Oh, God, that makes me crazy.
Yep. And so I just would sit there and I'd think, why would I want to go that path? Because I could see, well, long story short, I think there were 15 of us in the class. Every one of those students called me and became a client, and I don't want to say client, but we worked through stuff because they said, I can't believe how quickly you got through that to the point of it. And she kept trying to drag it up. Anyway, long story short, that gave me a huge boost of confidence, because I'm thinking, well, geez, if I can't pass this stupid class, how good am I? And then they all said, no, you got it. So they started referring people, and it just I didn't advertise one bit. And I did it for a number of years. And then it was the consciousness of the country suddenly became weird, and everybody wanted you to fix things. One gal even said, well, I'm in therapy, but I'm going to give all this stuff to you so you can fix it for me.
Oh.
And I went, whoa, no. So that is what I found. A lot of people, they just don't have the confidence to say, I got to really find out who I am. Mm-hmm. And the parts I don't like, I have an opportunity to address that. And the parts I do like, why aren't I celebrating them?
Right.
People just sit in the middle and go, oh, my life sucks. I hate it. I heard that. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, we'd be on a cruise. We'd be on an island somewhere, Cheryl.
Exactly. Well, and I did that with my physical therapy practice, is when people would come to me, and I ran kind of an alternative type of practice. So it wasn't traditional physical therapy. And a lot of people that would come to me were kind of like at their wits' end. And it was like, this is the last hope, which thank goodness I didn't know that at first, because that would have scared the heck out of me. But I would tell them right up front, it's like, I will not fix you. I will teach you how to fix yourself. I will give you the tools to be able to recognize what's going on in your body and to be able to take control and to be able to have the tools to get out of pain, to be able to get, more mobile and more flexible. So it's not on me. I'm not going to fix you because I don't want that responsibility. I want you to have the power and that feeling of, well, empowerment, that you're able to be able to fix yourself. I mean, who wants to go to a therapist or, for the rest of their life?
Well, some people do, because then they can say, well, I'm broken. It's a lot of, we have to find out. And in my book, again, The View from 13F, at the end, I do talk about these, and just the kind of questions I would ask people to say, here's what we need to think about. So you can get your confidence back, because the whole point is giving people their power back. They were willing to come to me and give me their power because they felt disempowered because the other guy couldn't fix it. So, like, I'm going to hand you everything about me and you tell me what I need to do. And it's, no, see, that's your problem. In a nutshell, that we got to find the root problem, what's going on here. And you're not broken. It's just you haven't recognized who you are yet. And The Lion King is one of my favorite movies, because I went in to see that when it first came out. I didn't know it was a kid's movie. I was in Denver here at the mall at Cherry Creek shopping, and I saw Lion King. And again, that little voice said, go see it. So I just walked in the afternoon and sat down. And when they opened with that music, and I got, you go, what? And I went, whoa. I walked out of there going, this is not a kid's movie. This is the circle of life. Because there are 5 processes in that movie. If you go watch it again, you're young, you're innocent, then you get scarred by scar. Then you go into sex, drugs, rock and roll, because, Hakuna Matata, here's a lion eating worms. That's not normal. And then you have someone get in your face and go, all right, who are you? And the final step is you reclaim your kingdom. And you just have to do that. And sometimes you do need somebody looking at you and going, no, you are the king. Remember when you were little? So a lot of the conversations we would have is go back to when you were never told what to do, when you were the youngest you can be. What did you love to do? Play in the dirt, be with horses, read, whatever, I don't know. But a lot of people go, oh my God, that's my passion. I didn't even know it. So they reclaimed their kingdom.
Well, that's beautiful. So tell us a little bit more about your book. You got your book written, and I know that was a really big struggle for you, because you can talk about what happened, and you had that very successful counseling service, and you also do a lot of talks and workshops, and I know you speak all over the place. But putting it down in a book, what was kind of holding you back?
That's a good question. So I said, I've had a lot of people, and you and I have mutual people that we know. So they kept saying, write the book, write the book, write the book. And my husband, the one that was the problem during this whole incident, used to tell me I was so stupid. I need to keep my mouth shut because nobody wants to hear what I have to say. He was very successful, and we would go to functions, high net worth people, and he just didn't want me talking. So I would hold a vodka tonic in my hand and just nod my head. That was my crutch. So I developed an alcohol and drug problem, because it was easier to check out. That's another whole story. It's in the book. But so I had to get around that. But I didn't know how to write it to say I had to really, so I wrote a list and said, here are the reasons I can't write this book. And I gave myself about 10 days. Can I afford it? Am I willing to open up to a degree that makes a difference? And can I talk about these people? And what if nobody likes it? Or, just everything I could think of. And I had to take every single thing off that list before I would start, because I do not start a project and not finish it. That's just not me. That's how I was raised. So I thought I have to get these out of the way and address them. So when I did write it, and surprisingly, from the moment I started till it was published, it was 21 months, which is pretty fast, I guess, but that's a lot of editing in there and a lot of other things. But when I wrote it, I wasn't even sure what direction it was going to be or how I was going to do it. But I did get the story out. There's not another book about this incident, but it is a lot about growing up and then transforming from who I was married to, the fellow I was married to how I had to grab my own boots, just hitch up my own big girl pants and step out and do it. And I just find that story resonates with a lot of people. And they go, well, how did you do that? That's why I kept thinking, I just need to write this and we'll see if it helps people. And I mean, my reviews are really good and I'm just really happy with the comments I'm getting. And I just love, I don't want to tell you what to do. I just want to help you figure it out.
Right.
Which is, you know, your vision as well. I mean, you're really good at that too. And just ask enough questions. And like I say, I love seeing the light come on in people's eyes, and they just, you can see them, they just sit up straighter and they go, holy cow, I get it now. And it can maybe be 3 questions I ask and they go, well, now I get it. So it makes me so happy to see that.
So are you still doing some counseling?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Do it online usually.
Good for you. Okay, so you've got your book, and that is on Amazon, correct?
Yes, it's The View from 13F, and it's on my website as well if you'd like a signed copy.
Ooh.
And my website is Shari, Shari Peterson, Peterson, author. So 3 words, 1 word, ShariPetersonAuthor.com.
You're just an amazing person to talk to, your energy and your stories. There's still a lot that we didn't cover because we'd be here all day, but you have so much wisdom through this one horrible experience that, I mean, it's just, it's almost mind-boggling. I mean, I keep getting chills even when I talk to you. And, you know, when I was reading and going over your website earlier, it was like, wow, you know, and I've even heard you talk about your experience before, and it still just continues to blow me away every time I talk to you and I listen to you. It's just mind-boggling.
Thank you.
Thank you for being such an incredible inspiration.
Well, I appreciate that. My sisters that I adore, when the first time we flew after this happened, they were thinking, are we nervous? And then my other sister looks at both of us and goes, nah, she already took one for the team. So humor was big in my family as well.
Yeah, that sounds like something my sisters would say, or one of them. I've got 4, so there's 5 of us.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you having an interest, and I hope that your listeners get a little something out of this. And just, if nothing else, just really sit down and figure out who you are and how that would look like. And you'd just be amazed how the troubles you think you have just disappear. They disappear. You rise above them is what happens. And people just, it kind of scares them at first, but it is doable. It's very doable.
Well, Shari, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in, and put things in perspective and learn how to take your power back and claim your power, because that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.